What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today's video, we're taking a look at the AzurPoly C160 Transall. This is an airplane that I've just been having way too much fun with. It prompted me to get a pre-recorded video out to y'all. I know you've been wondering where the live streams are. Hopefully that'll be coming up here pretty soon. But today we're going to be taking this airplane on a humanitarian aid flight in South Africa. We're going to be doing some pilotage using the VOR tracking system and looking out the window using our maps and charts to get to our destination. As far as myself and operating this aircraft, I am in no means professional yet. However, I've been having so much fun with this airplane that I felt it was necessary to get a little video out there. The airplane is not perfect, but I think it's only one or two small updates away from being something very, very special. The most notable will be the flight model. I will talk more about this once we reach the cruise altitude, and then we'll have a wrap-up summary at the end of this video. So until then, I hope you guys enjoy this flight on the way down to Prieska, I believe is how you say it, in South Africa, operating a Red Cross humanitarian aid flight in the C160. First thing we're going to do over here, we're going to go ahead and get the batteries on. Once we get the batteries powered online, we're going to go right into an APU start, and we're just going to use the APU to power the aircraft on this one. It does come with an external power cart out here. I can actually connect it for you so you can take a look at its own little model right here. And you can share the load between the APU and the GPU if you so desire. But we're going to do a straight APU start here, so we'll make sure the APU fire test works first, which it does. We'll go ahead and clear the caution, clear the alert, and we'll come to our APU panel, and let's go ahead and start. We do not need flight assist startup, but we're going to go ahead and open the air inlet, and then we'll go ahead and hit the APU master start. Low oil pressure light will extinguish. We'll monitor the RPM. Once the APU is up to speed, we're going to come up here and we're going to go ahead and move this to G5 generator, which is ground power. Now this is actually, G5, which is actually APU power. Ground power is actually here on, indicated by this little symbol over here. All right, but we're not going to use the external GPU, so I'll disconnect that, and you can see here now that this light is extinguished. So to properly use the APU power of the aircraft, we're going to go ahead and move this selector to the G5, and then we're going to press the transfer switches to get the aircraft to be powered through the APU. Now you'll notice we still have our generators are in op because obviously those engines aren't running, but we are now loaded up on GPU power for the most part. So with that done, we'll go ahead and get our displays on. We'll get the EFIS display and of course the nav display as well. Now this nav display, despite being very, very rudimentary, it is actually fully IFR capable if you're traveling VOR airways or NDBs or anything like that. Old school navigation, it is fully capable with HSI selection. Now I have noticed a couple bugs from some VORs on some radials. It doesn't seem to properly track, and I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about here in a minute. But for the most part, I've done several flights straight hard IMC utilizing this system, and it works just fine. So with that side powered up, we'll go ahead and power up the first officer's EFIS as well. Both those displays are on, and I guess while we're sitting here, let's go ahead and get the position lights on the ground. Now we can also, there is panel lighting. We'll go ahead and turn that on. We don't really need it right now. The sun is getting ready to set, but let's take a look at the loading here. Let's go ahead and open the aft cargo. Now to open the aft cargo, you actually have to have some hydraulics powered, which we have power now with the APU running. And let's go ahead and fill up this airplane today. So let's go ahead and take, we'll take a tank of water, we'll take some barrels, some boxes, and maybe a pallet. Now you got to be mindful of the weights of each of these items because it does get pretty heavy pretty quick, and that is one of the downfalls to the C160. So we'll also turn on propeller vortices and propeller dust right now, and we'll go down to the fuel page. Now for fuel, I'm going to go ahead and lower this dramatically. The Charlie tanks are typically used as reserve tanks, don't feed directly, so we're going to go ahead and minimize those. Tank Alpha, we're also going to drop that down about 1700 a side. Now this can also be accomplished from the regular Microsoft menu, and we'll also lower tank B. We'll get about equal tanks in there. We'll do about 1,300. It's a pretty short flight, and we need all the weight we can get. Not exact, but that's fine. Now we can go back to our weight and balance. We're 40,000. Max is 51,000. So we're still below max, but you can see if you were to quickly load all this up and put fuel on the airplane, it would indeed get weight limited very, very quickly. All right, that's all loaded up right there. So with that done, we're going to go ahead and pull the pitot covers. You can see the props are secured. You have some pitot covers over here as well. Very nice external modeling. And we also have the inlets there to the turboprops has the plugs in them. And you always want to make sure you pull those out, because if you try to start an engine with the plugs in, it may not start. Ask me how I know that. So, all right, let's go ahead and prepare for engine start. We'll get the beacon light on. With the beacon on, I'm also going to close up a couple doors. Let's just, we'll close up the cargo, we'll close up the side doors, and we'll close up the access door here. Now what's really cool, and I'll show you this when we land, you can actually lower the fuselage to have better ease of access of loading and unloading cargo. Kind of neat, but we're not going to mess with that now. So all our doors are closed. So with that done, I'm going to go back to my aircraft display. I'm going to leave it chalked, but we're going to pull the pitot covers, and then I'm going to open the windows for engine starts, because that's just how it was done. And this is just going to be absolutely awesome sound set. So before start checklist, we're going to go ahead and run a quick little fire test here. Turboprop 1. And turboprop 2, both illuminate, will kill the caution. With that done, we'll move our start levers to start. Now you can see here in the normal position, these are like I believe they're like some type of magnetic switching in there. So as you pull the lever back, it changes over to the start position. With them in the start position, we're going to go ahead and get our fuel pumps on. We'll go ahead and start engine 2 first. I'm going to move this to the startup procedure. I'm not sure if that has to be there or not, but that just seems to be working for me. And we'll go ahead and engage number 2. Now at this point, we're looking for 20% on the overhead on the high pressure turbine. We're almost at 20%. You can see we got some little bit of rotation, and then we're going to get ready to add fuel, and this is where the sounds are really going to get awesome. So we'll go ahead and introduce fuel. Low idle. Right about there. I have mine bound. Now we'll monitor the engine startup. There's our light off. Now you can really hear that prop start to spin up. Here's our RPMs coming alive. Hydraulic pressure lights have extinguished. Extinguished. We'll start the other one from the outside view so we can take a look at it. But inside with the windows open is just awesome. I'll turn the sounds down a little bit here as well. All right, we're pretty stable at that point. We'll go ahead and we'll disengage the starter. We'll regard the switch. We're going to leave that in that position there. We'll leave the pumps on. Now let's go ahead and move the the fuel lever to the normal position. Now we're going to go ahead and uncover the engine 1 starter, and let's engage number 1 start. Going to have a slow rotation. Let's monitor the number 2. So the number 1 tack, looking for 20%. As soon as we introduce fuel, we'll watch the outside view. Closing in on 20%, so let's go ahead and introduce fuel now. Match it up, close as we can. A little bit of a bug out on the animation there. All lights are out. Looks like we have 2 good starts at that point. Let's go ahead and cover the guard. Move this to the start position. These are a little bit high. I'm going to bring this one back down a little bit here. Low idle. And we'll go ahead and close the windows. All right, we are good to go with those on. Let's go ahead and get our generators on. Generator 1, generator 2, generator 3, generator 4. We know no longer need the transfer switches. We'll pull those offline. And now we go ahead and secure the auxiliary power unit. We'll go ahead to the off position. Air inlet is closed. With the engines running, let's go ahead and get our INS into the nav position. We'll get our radios set up here. We'll self-test in progress. Now, these are going to support flight plans at some point, hopefully in a future update, but right now it's pretty basic. However, like I said, it's fully functional for keeping your aircraft IFR. So I'm going to put this one on COM. It's pretty simple. So if you want to monitor Unicom, we're going to highlight that. We're going to do 122.8, no decimal. Press the enter key, it puts it in the standby. Once in the standby, and we hit the XFR, which is transfer, now we're COM1 active on 22.8. On this radio here, I'll put this RN for radio navigation. Today's flight, we're going, basically we have one VOR to track, and it doesn't work that well on this particular VOR, so I'll show you the bug that I'm experiencing. But on most of the VORs, I haven't experienced this. It's only on a select few. So the VOR here, if I can click on it. Where's the freak? I'm still getting used to this new sky vector. 116.5 is the frequency. So we're going to put 116.5. So we'll highlight nav 116.5, no decimal, hit enter, transfer it to active. Now it's going to be about 110 miles on a heading of 150. Let me just double check, make sure that is correct. Straight line, direct to, we're going to be doing some pilotage here, we're going to follow the river, but 111 miles on a heading of 155. So I'm going to select course to 155. 155 course is selected. I'm using my Honeycomb Bravo to move all the needles. Now I'll put the heading in there. Just dial this heading bug up. I know it's going to be about we'll center it up for now. Alright, so our nav radios are set. Let's hit the magic barrel ref key 1020 on the altimeter. Has a very rudimentary autopilot. We'll discuss that in flight as well. But at this point, we are pretty much ready to taxi. Let's go ahead and kill the rest of the overhead lights. We'll go ahead and get our heats on. And pitot heats, we're going to put them in low. We are in Africa, so we don't expect a whole ton of icing right now. So we'll go ahead and get the side windows heated up as well. We will use water injection or methanol injection, which is absolutely awesome. This is one of the few airplanes I've ever seen to simulate methanol injection. I hope they continue to improve it and maybe get a little bit of sound changing here. Now, in the Metroliner, when you used AWE or alcohol water injection, it actually made a noticeable sound change in the engines. And while the sound set is phenomenal here on the ground, it is lacking a little bit once you apply that takeoff power and then up in cruise. So I hope maybe they can continue to tweak it just a little bit. But like I said, I've never been in a C160. I just going off of what I would assume would be correct. It's just based on the aircraft that I've flown in real life. So this is now armed here. Now the only way the methanol will actually inject is if the condition levers are full forward, and I believe we're over a certain torque, 75% or something. So basically, once we go full power for takeoff, they will activate it. And you'll actually see the valves over here. We should see these go to open, and these should light up knowing that we have methanol water injection. All right, everything is complete. We're going to do 2 notches of flaps, which is about 20 degrees here. I've bound it down. That is set. You can see our flaps have been deployed. Now let's go ahead and clean up the rest of the airplane. We'll go ahead and pull the wheel chocks. We no longer even need the EFB, so we can hide that. EFB is hidden. Let's get our taxi light on. And I will say that this airplane, it sits very interestingly on the ground. So what I've done is I've actually bound like a taxi view, which is up here, kind of raises my seat, and then I land the airplane from here, and then this is my IFR flying view right here. So a little bit of both. I can see we're going to need some lighting, so let me go ahead and put a little more lighting down here for pilot lighting. I'm going to bump that up a little bit, and then we'll come over here, and I'm going to bump up the white, a little bit more green glow on there. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and release the parking brake. And let's get out of here. We're going to do a sharp right turn. I'll drop that second engine into reverse for a second. Not quite sure how much is simulated ground friction wise. We may end up taking out a couple people here here on our taxi out. Just look at that engine out there. So awesome. All right, now we can go ahead and begin our short taxi to the runway. Now, for simplistic purposes, they've noted that the tiller is basically bound to the rudders on the ground. There's really not much else you can do. All right, so before takeoff here, we're going to make a right turn to 090, kind of brief that up. We're going to put our condition levers to full forward. You'll hear the ground dial come up. One thing I also forgot, oh no, I got both of the engines into normal position. That's good. So we're high idle there. We're approaching the runway. Let's go ahead and get our landing lights on, and we'll go ahead and turn our wing lights on as well, which is way up on the overhead. Way up here. They're on. All right, now we'll take the runway here. Get a little bit more light down here in the airplane. Try to get some of these LEDs on here. Let's do that. Now there should be a light switch over here. I can't find it right now. We'll be fine. All right, we're set. Right turn 090. Props are full forward. Flaps are set. Trims are set. Just double check here. I'm going to give myself about 1 degree up here on the trim. You can see the trim is directly linked to the yoke, which is kind of neat, as in the real airplane. All right, let's go nose forward on the stick and let's get out of here. And you can see our AWE lights have illuminated. Get those power levers into the takeoff position. Nice and smooth. Airspeed alive. Knots. Start a nice easy rotation here, about 110. Oh, she comes up so nicely. Positive rate, gear up. Look at those propeller vortices. Pretty neat. There's some real videos on YouTube with that happening as well. All right, we are up. We're going to make a right turn 090. As we begin to accelerate, we'll retract 1 notch of flaps here. It's pretty draggy once you start getting past 20 degrees. Monitoring that climb, retrimming. Coming around to 090. Coming all the way around to 155, and at this point we'll go ahead and make flaps 0. We're cleaned up. Begin accelerating right about 10 degrees of pitch. You can see here in my IFR view, holding right about 10 degrees of pitch there. We're coming around to 155. Now basically we don't even need to worry about the heading. We just need to stay over the river, and we'll look at that a little bit more in cruise. And that's what I find this airplane is just absolutely perfect for. Doing some old school VFR, a little bit of IFR. You know, would I go flying on that sim with 200.5 mile weather conditions all over the place, maybe into Heathrow? Probably not. Could you do it? Absolutely. Does it sound enjoyable? Not really. This is much more enjoyable for this type of airplane, in my opinion. This is kind of what it's meant for. But you can absolutely take it into those busy airspaces and do what you need to do. I'm going to go ahead and lower the airplane sounds here a little bit. Going to continue trimming out here. 160-ish knots here. Seems to be a pretty decent climb out. She seems happy there. There are some climb speeds recommended in the manual. Beautiful sunset down there. So we're basically going to follow, we're going to parallel this river all the way down. Now, for autopilot purposes, there's multiple ways you can do this here. You have an autopilot panel over here with basic functionality, which we'll look at once I have the autopilot engaged. I'm doing all of my autopilot control with my Honeycomb Bravo. It works pretty much out of the box, using the knobs and stuff up on the on that Bravo throttle, so it makes it really, really nice. But the other way to do it is, and I'll show you too, is you hit the AP for autopilot, and it'll kind of give you an idea of what we're going to do. But I like to hand fly it up to cruise altitude. We're going to be going down there at 10,000 feet. Basically, the best way the autopilot works as of right now, very simplistic autopilot, and how old airplanes that I flew, such as 99s and old Pistons and everything, with old rinky-dink autopilots, you basically flew it up to cruise, leveled it off, got it all trimmed out, and then just engage the autopilot. Now, can you manipulate the pitch and speed with the autopilot? Absolutely. That's just more work. You don't buy these airplanes to just turn the autopilot on. You buy these airplanes to sit around and have fun fly. So right about there, got her trimmed out. You can see we're starting to accelerate nice. I'm going to bring the power back here momentarily, but first things first, I'm going to go ahead and engage the autopilot, altitude, and heading mode. I'm doing this all on my Bravo. You see, I wanted to drop down there a little bit. Put a little bit of back pressure on the yoke, get it to come right back up, and then it'll capture. So autopilot's engaged. It's going to do its thing now. It's going to come up to 10,000 and hold. We're already at 230 knots, so let's go ahead and bring our power back. Or should have done a power reduction a little bit earlier. Let's come back to about 1,500. Everything's off. We're level at 10,000 feet. Now let me show you what I was talking to you about the courses. So I'm going to put my course selector on, and let's see. So you could see the CDI deflection. Now watch this. I'm going to spin it back to the left, and you see how it just kind of, there's no intermediate. You're either left of course or right of course. So watch this. We'll go one at a time. See, 141, I'm left of course. 139, I'm right of course. Now, I don't know why that is. I've only noticed that on some VORs, this one in particular. So that doesn't really help us out in terms of navigating. Now, what we can do is use it kind of as a bearing pointer. So we can put VOR 1 over here, and we could see that bearing 2 is about 325, which is just about what we want. So that's there. We can also put it in nav 2. Let's do that. So let's come all the way down here. Since we're not tracking anything else, let's select nav 2, 1165, enter, transfer, put it in the active. So now let's see if our VOR 2 needle does that. So to change the needles, you select here course select, and now I'm on VOR 2, and you're just going to mouse wheel this course select knob right here. And I'm going to spin this around. I'm going to see if it does the same thing as VOR 1, where it just jumps left and right, of course. And again, this is only on some VORs. On other VORs, I've tracked perfectly. So I don't know what that is all about. But let's see here. So we're going to kind of work this around. Yep, see, it does the same thing. That's right. Well, we know we want to be on 155, typically. That was our initial course. So we're going to set 155. I'm going to set 155 on both of them. Now what's interesting is 155 on both of them doesn't, oh yeah, let's go ahead and select course here, and then 155. Alright, so I have 155. Now what I can do to help myself out here is I can pull the wind up, and I can see I got about a 6-knot crosswind. So I'm going to need to be a few degrees right of 155. I'm actually a few degrees left. So I'm going to move this over just a few degrees to the right. We'll see the airplane's going to go into a nice bank turn, and that coincides with what we were looking at on our map with our pilotage. We knew we wanted to stay to the right of the river. If we would have continued on that heading, we would have probably been a little bit further left, of course. But again, this is just rough navigation. This is how it's done when you do this type of flying. You're using old navigation methods that may or may not be that accurate, depending on the airplane that you're in, like if you're tracking an ADF or something, but you're using that as a tool in conjunction with what you see out the window, which is what is so awesome about Microsoft Flight Sim, is you can really do this like you would in real life. So you can see we're on the right side of the river. Let's pull up our Navigraph charts again here. You can kind of take a look. Now, we don't know exactly where we are. I like to keep my position hidden on Navigraph, but if you get stressed out about that, you can always enable your position. But you can see our route of flight. We went right through, I don't know if we went through some restricted airspace there. We might have. Yeah, ground to 7,000, so we're above it, but we should be fine. But you can see here, so you see how we're already kind of crossing over the river. I think we were just a little bit right of course, so we're going to hit that. But that's all right. We basically want to stay with the river all the way down to Fox Alpha Papa Kilo. We're looking good. As long as we keep that river in sight, we got nothing to worry about. Now, to double check ourselves, if you want to always check, you can check our map here, and you can see here we are. And actually, yeah, so there's a small little town right there, and Prisk, is that the name of it? Priska? So you can see our destination down there on the bottom. So we're looking good. No more cheating with the maps. Let's go ahead and get our EFB hidden, and we'll enjoy some cruising time here. All right, while we're cruising over the river down to our destination, let's just talk a few things about this airplane that I've noticed right out of the bat, or right off the bat rather. The sound set on the ground is very immersive. As far as engine starting, the doors, and ground roll, I think it's very immersive. I am testing a little bit of a FS Realistic profile as well. It's a very, very minimalistic profile. I typically don't use FS Realistic on any of my add-ons, but I've been kind of toying with it on this one just a bit. But as far as the engine sounds and the click sounds in the cockpit, they're all very, very good. Where it tends to kind of lead off is once you apply that takeoff power. Now, I don't have personal experience with the C160 from inside the cockpit. I don't know if what they have here, the rendition, is accurate. But to me, it seems like there would be just a little bit more for a little bit more scream of the engines as you get up to those higher RPMs and max power settings, especially when you start using the methanol or water injection system. Now, maybe on this particular airplane, there was no difference as far as sound is concerned when if you were using the water injection or not. But from my experience, the airplanes that I have experienced with water injection, you could tell there was definitely some audible change when that was injected. Now, basically, the way that system works, we'll do an in-depth video on it later, but it uses water to cool, so you can basically use more fuel to get more power out of your airplane, or out of your engines, rather. High hot density altitude scenarios, high gross weight takeoff, short runways, those are scenarios where you would be using water injection. Other things about the airplane, the systems, as far as the very basic functionality, which is already, AzurPoly has already said that that's what they're expecting, is to make some updates and finish up some things in the cockpit. It's very nicely laid out for you in the manual what's implemented and what's not, but all the basics are there. You have your VOR navigation, your ADF navigation, you can fly heading modes, you can hold altitudes with autopilot, you could fly the airplane with the heading knob, which is typically what I would do in airplanes that had very limited autopilot capabilities, such as just either an altitude hold and a heading hold. I flew airplanes that literally just had turn coordination hold, so basically it was synced off the turn coordinator, and it was just going to keep you wings level, and then if you rolled the needle to the right, it would introduce a little bit of bank, and then you'd roll it back out. So these older airplanes, there's different ways of flying them, different methods, but from what I've found out with this airplane, it seems to live up to what I would expect. The modeling is really awesome. I mean, just taking a look at that shot right there, I mean, this airplane does look absolutely beautiful. I do hope to see them continue their updates on the inside. I'm hoping that they will get some type of flight planning set up for the FMS there in the cockpit, which would be really neat. Then you could start loading in more complex flight plans, maybe even waypoints, custom waypoints. I think custom waypoints would be pretty cool. I don't know if this aircraft is capable of doing it, but when you start flying humanitarian missions, sketchy cargo missions, or military operations like this, or any type of ISR flying, there are high likelihoods that you're going to be going to a place that is not depicted by any public chart, and it's going to be a lat long coordinate that you're going to navigate to. So I would like to see that hopefully in the future, if this airplane was capable of that. I don't know if it was. I would imagine there was some type of avionics suite that would allow that to take place, but I think that would be pretty neat. Then you could kind of have some lat long, put in your custom waypoint, go to maybe a dirt road somewhere, and go fly in there and deliver some vehicles. So that's pretty neat. All right, so the last thing we'll kind of touch on is the flight model, which to me is probably one of the most important parts. The flight model of this airplane is very, very good. I do find that it flies like I would expect a C160 to fly. It does not give you that spongy, canned Microsoft default flight model feel that I get with certain airplanes. Now, there have been airplanes like the CRJ and more recently the ATR-72 that has been released from Azobo and partners. It's a nice, the ATR is a nice airplane, CRJ is a nice airplane, but there's something about the flight model that I feel like I really need to do some heavy tweaking with my own personal hardware. I am using the Thrustmaster TCA yoke for this airplane, but there's some tweaking that I have to do in those airplanes to get rid of that sponginess feeling that I get from those airplanes. And this one does not have that at all. I pull back on the stick, there's a nice delayed lumbering reaction to the control input. Same when I push that stick forward. Rolling, the same thing. Whether you're rolling in to the left or to the right, it responds very well. One thing I'll note that I think is a bug, or I'm pretty sure is a bug, is turn coordination doesn't seem to work properly, at least the indication. This little bar here on the bottom of the turn coordinator, now it should be centered, but I can press on the rudder all day long and it's not going to move. It's basically fixed, and what happens is the arrow up here is what moves. You see that? You see how the arrow's moving? That's not how it should be. Really, this should stay fixed, and this brick should be sliding left or right depending on the rudder input or the yaw input on the airplane. Now you can kind of look here. It almost looks like this is opposite. So see, I'm adding left rudder. Look what's happening to the ball. It's going out to the left. Now let's let it center up, and we'll try it again. So I'm going to do right rudder. See, it's coming out to the right. I guess it is working okay. Maybe it's working okay in cruise, but at severe angles or steep banks, I've noticed that I cannot keep this centered over here. I don't know if maybe the brick isn't working properly. Maybe I should pay attention to the ball up here, to the coordinator up here instead of this. But this is very familiar to me. This is from the Airbus A320, which I fly, so this is very familiar to me, and it's not working how I would expect it to work. But I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying I think there might be a potential bug there. But other than that, the airplane hand flies wonderfully. It's very believable, and the thrust to output, depending on how heavy you are, it's all there. It's all there. It feels very, very nice. We could look here at our Navigraph charts here. Again, our VFR charts, we did our direct to 110 miles. So I am approaching 90 miles. You can see here we're 88 miles from the VOR. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and start to trickle down. So I'm going to reset my altitude. Again, I'm using my honeycomb for this. I'm going to go ahead and set a lower altitude. You see the airplane's going to nose over. Now, there's probably multiple different ways you could do this with the autopilot here. You can do a pitch hold or a speed hold. Right now I'm heading select altitude arm, and we're just using the autopilot to come down here about 1,800 feet per minute. We're going to continue on down towards the field. The field is at 3,000 feet, so I want to set a bottom altitude of at least 5,000, and what we'll do is we'll do a low pass over. So you can see here the altitude window. I'm going to go ahead and scroll this down to 5. That'll keep us at 2,000 feet above. We'll do a low pass. We'll pop some flares for cinematic purposes, and then we'll come around and land. All right, we're starting down on the descent. We'll reset our barrows, 1021 on the barrows. Now, as the flares are concerned, they're up here on the overhead panel. You basically need to arm them, so we'll go ahead and put them in the on position. Now, you should have to move the guard for that switch to move there, but that's all right. So they're in the on position. You can have them in preventative or reactive mode. Right now I've got them in reactive mode, fire order. Once you press that, I believe 10 seconds or 5 seconds, and then it will release a set of flares. So we'll go ahead and demonstrate that here real quick before we get busy. How cool is that? Pretty neat. And beautiful sunset here as well. We want to get down before it gets dark. So 7.6, we should start looking for Priska. I think I can see the lights in the small little town there. We're on our way down. Let's get our propeller levers, or the condition levers, all the way up. Bump the sounds of the simulator up a little bit here. And down we go. We'll do a low pass and then come around and land on, I believe, 3-3. You can see now we are exceeded our distance from the VOR, and it has just now flagged itself out. So we are pure pilotage at this point. So if I look at if I remember the map, the airport should be just past this little river here, and I'm starting to see the lights. Now I do have a payware airport as well, not payware, a freeware airport from Flight Sim TO, which makes this really nice, kind of updates the ground textures. Approaching 250 knots now in our descent. I'm going to bring back the power a little bit more, and let's go ahead and turn the prop sync off. Spotlight on. Now we can see our cockpit a little bit better. All right, 5,000 feet. We're looking for the airport. I see the airport over there. And let's do a high speed, low pass down the runways. Make sure it's clear. Get nice and low for cinematic purposes. I think that's a runway, right? Yeah, I can see him now. I can make him out. Nice low pass. Flare dump right over the top as well. Right down the runways, make sure they're clear. We're going to come back around and land on this runway here. It appears clear. Let's go ahead and get the power in. Let's begin a little pirouette up to the top. Acrobatic or aerobatic approach here. Basically, we're going to come back around. We want to get parallel with that road. All right, let's bring that power back. Let's roll it in. This aircraft is very capable as far as its maneuvering. It's noted in multiple air shows. You can see it performing. Go ahead and get the gear start to come down. Flaps position 1. And I love the window texturing on this airplane as well. It's really nice, very believable. There goes our second notch of flaps. Now it's important that you don't get behind the power curve. Depending on your weight, your approach speed is going to be anywhere between 100 to 130. I think 130 might be a little bit fast. I think maybe 120. I think at our weight, right about 110 should be okay. We'll go ahead and continue to configure the flaps. Gear is down. Condition levers are full. Get all of our flaps in. I can barely see the runway now. Good thing we got here just in time. Gears down. Condition levers full. Flaps are down. Barely can make out the runway now. Typical humanitarian aid flights. So you're not going to be going to all these airports that have nice lighting and approach light systems. So if it says you better land before dark, you better land before dark. A little windy down here. That was firm. Reversers. Spoilers are out. ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Priska, I believe. It's a dirt strip. We'll go ahead and turn off here. Look at the dirt from the prop effects. I love that. That's also an effect that you can turn off should you want to. Go ahead and stow it. Bring the flaps in. Taxi cam. Now what we can do as well, we'll get the APU fired up so we'll have that ready to go. Pull up here next to this vehicle and we'll begin the unloading process. Right about there is good. Alright, we are set. Brakes are set, APU is on the line, and we are in the generating position. We'll get our transfer switches. We'll turn our generators off. With our generators off, we'll go ahead and turn off our avionics. You gotta hold it to shut down. Now I'm gonna leave all the external lights on here, just so we can see a little bit better outside what's going on. But with that set, let's go ahead and pop the windows and shut down. Condition levers to the cutoff position. So the cargo is representative of what you load from the EFB. So we took a couple of pallets and we took a tank of water, it looks like. So we got a couple of pallets, tank of water, maybe some medicine or ammunition there as well. And the cargo light bay actually works, so that's pretty cool. Last thing I'll show you here before we shut down completely is we'll squat the airplane. So we'll do a fuselage lowering, and what'll happen is it's going to bring the cargo ramp up a little bit, and then look, it actually is going to sit on the wheels. I left all the beacon on too, that's alright. We're still moving stuff, so I guess it's not terribly inaccurate. So now the airplane is going to completely squat, and that can aid in loading. Maybe you're loading some vehicles or got some really heavy stuff that you need to bring in there. And just pretty neat that that's modeled as well. Alright, so in closing here, a couple of key takeaways from the airplane. What this airplane I think is perfectly set up for is any type of bush flying, any type of backwoods, backcountry cargo operations, military operations, ISR, stuff of that nature. This airplane is really going to fill that niche role. Now, what makes that niche role really enjoyable for me to fly is an airplane that is rustic and rudimentary enough, but still has the capability of some modern technology. Like we have capability to fly ILS, we have multiple HSI needles, we have ADF cards. So we have the tools available to us to operate in complex airspaces. However, this airplane is best used, best served, in my opinion, in those lesser than busy areas of operation. Now, does that mean you can't fly it from LaGuardia to Charlotte down the East Coast on VATSIM? No, absolutely, you can do that if you want to. But like I said, I think you're going to get more enjoyment out of it if you use it where it's really meant to shine. Now, my first couple of proving runs, you know, I flew it down the coast of Tampa, or down the coast of Florida, did some short runway practice at Key West, and then once I was comfortable with the airplane, yeah, then I started taking it into these little dirt strips and more less populated areas of the world. This current flight we did was like simulating a humanitarian aid flight in South Africa, which is pretty neat. So I really enjoy this airplane for what it is worth. I really think with a few solid updates, this airplane and its flight model could become one of my top favorite airplanes on the sim. Is it my absolute favorite right now? no, there are some things missing, still some bugs. You know, I'd like to see the pitch ladder implementation. I'd like to see fuel dump if that ever gets implemented. That would be pretty cool. I don't know if that's a Microsoft limitation or not. Obviously, getting the flight plan, some INS stuff in there, some more modernization on the inside, and then just tweaking out some of the other stuff. Maybe getting some smoother propeller animations on startup and shutdown. But for the most part, all the other animations are really, really good. So, is it perfect? No. If you use it where it's intended to be used, in my opinion, I think it really scratches an itch that I've been needing to scratch in this sim, and I really am getting a lot of enjoyment out of it. And I'm telling you, as far as hand flying and flight characteristics are concerned, it is one of the better hand flying airplanes that we have on the sim. So I hope you guys enjoyed this short little video, and I hope to catch you again here real soon. See ya!